Mr. James Bezan, I thank you very much for giving us your time for this interview. In June, we had an initiative in Canadian Parliament that recognized the massacre of political prisoners in 1988 in Iran as a genocide. Now we are on the occasion of 25th anniversary of this genocide. And of course, there is an international campaign going on to bring to justice those who ordered and those who executed this genocide. My question is that if you please explain about this initiative and also other actions in process in the Parliament.
Well, in Parliament, it was indeed my pleasure to be one of the movers of that motion that recognized the 1988 massacre as genocide. It received unanimous consent in the House of Commons, and it provides direction to our government of Canada to ensure that we continue to recognize and remember all of those victims and their families. I think it's important that we not only mark this as a memorial occasion, it's a reminder to us of the brutality of the current regime in Iran. It also is contingent upon us in the rest of the world outside of Iran to bring those to justice. I know that I've met with the United Nations Special Envoy on Human Rights for Iran, and I've been talking to our leadership within the Canadian government and our Foreign Affairs Department. And I believe that we have to go farther. Those individuals need to be tried. They need to be not only identified and their crimes against humanity reported, but I want to see those individuals in a criminal court. If we can't do it at the International Criminal Court level because Iran hasn't signed the declaration, we need to find other means. Current leadership in the regime, in the current cabinet, were directly tied to that massacre, that they supported it, they allowed it to happen, and didn't lift one finger to save so many innocent lives. So I will continue to be working vigilantly with my colleagues back in Parliament. I'll be encouraging our government to take a harder position within the United Nations and to ask them to bring forward the appropriate resolutions, either at the UN or at other international organizations, to create an environment where those perpetrators of this genocide can be brought to justice.
Yes, in fact, 1 year ago, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was in September 2012, when the Canadian government closed down the Iranian embassy in Ottawa. Of course, it was welcomed by the majority of the Iranians in Canada, since all of them believe in that all the embassies of the Iranian regime in all the countries are centers of espionage and, let's say, espionage for Iranians and especially the refugees in those countries. Can you please explain more about this action and also what else should be done to get more results on this in other countries? What do you suggest?
Well, I worked quite diligently for some time to have the Iranian embassy within Canada shut down. I was gravely concerned that the representatives of the Iranian regime at the embassy in Ottawa were actively involved in espionage. They were actively involved in intimidation and uttering threats against the diaspora in Canada. I don't believe that those Iranians who have come to call Canada home should be faced with such crimes that were being perpetrated by the staff of the Iranian embassy. Often they were hosting receptions and under the pretense of coming and look at this beautiful Persian art or experience Iranian culture. But really they were using it as a mechanism to collect information. They were using the embassy as a way to spy on the actions of the Canadian government. And more importantly, they were using it as a way to keep tabs on Iranian Canadians and refugees who were living in Canada, and use their actions, whether they were protesting, whether they're demonstrating or writing blogs or articles denouncing the Ayatollah and the mullahs, and they were using that to take back and say, okay, now we need to threaten these individuals to be quiet, or their relatives back in Iran were going to be hurt. We don't need that type of intimidation taking place, and the only way that we could really take a strong step was to shut it down. So I was very pleased that Minister Baird and the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, acted in not only shutting down the embassy in Ottawa, but also shutting the Canadian embassy down in Tehran. It sends a strong signal is that we will not tolerate not only the abuses of the Iranian regime within Iran, but we will not tolerate their, lack of understanding of Canadian values and Canadian principles within Canada.
Which is, of course, very much appreciated by us. Through Sima Azadi, our viewers were informed about Mr. John Baird's position about the new president in Iran. What some people just say that he is a moderate.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Mr. John Baird said that Iran has to show the change through practice, not through the words.
Exactly.
And he emphasized on three major factors. One was freedom and human rights in Iran. And the second one was the stopping nuclear program. And also the third one was to stop meddling in Syria and Lebanon. It's our privilege to know your view about this.
Well, I was very pleased when Minister Baird put out that statement and wrote his editorial in the Globe and Mail, which clearly articulated the position of the Canadian government on how we want to go ahead with President Rouhani. I issued a statement after the election saying, okay, I understand that you're only on the ballot because the Ayatollah allowed you to be on the ballot. So I know he is very much paying attention to the internal politics within Iran and President Rouhani's background. So I think it is important that if Rouhani wants to really show that he is a moderate, that he has the interests of the Iranian people at heart, there's three clear issues he has to do. Stop funding Assad and the Syrian regime. Stop funding Hezbollah and allowing that agitation in Lebanon and in the entire region to continue. Drop their aspirations for nuclear weapons and develop closer diplomatic ties with the rest of the world. And start respecting, first and foremost, the human rights and the freedoms and liberties that should be enjoyed by the great people of Iran.
Exactly. And if you go a little bit back, following the rulings of numerous courts in the UK, in the European Union, and in the United States, and of course the great endeavor of honorable representatives of the Canadian people, People's Mujahideen of Iran and Iranian resistance was delisted in Canada. Of course, one of them who was very much active in this was yourself. Mm-hmm. I thank you very much for that. In your opinion, what should be the next step, or let's say the further steps to support the desire and the will of the Iranian people for freedom and confronting this regime that supports terrorism?
I'm very proud that we made the right decision. There is no question that this is an opportunity for Canada to become much more active with the NCRI, to support the Council and all the different organizations that are striving for democracy and human rights within Iran. I have founded an organization in Parliament of Canada called the Canadian Parliamentarians for Human Rights and Democracy in Iran, and working with my colleagues in Parliament to find ways to how we can do more in promotion of the whole issue of how do we bring freedom and liberty within the context of Iran as it exists today.
You know that members of Iranian resistance, those who are in liberty, in fact, they are located in a zone so-called protected by the Iraqi government. But so far, they are attacked 3 times, missile attack. And 10 people were murdered, and hundreds were injured in those attacks. Of course, it is in a situation that UNAMI committed in their safety and their protection, and promised to transfer them to a safer place. So far, just a few number of them are transferred to another country. What can be the role of the international community to avoid further threats on these people?
It breaks my heart to see what the residents of Camp Ashraf have had to go through. Why they were ever transferred to Camp Liberty is beyond my intelligence. It doesn't make sense to me. They are living in relative comfort with their own homes, their own property. Why would they be sent to a prison camp? Essentially, as much as they say it's called Camp Liberty, it reminds me of a prison camp. Canadian prisons are actually nicer than the pictures I've seen.
In Iran, they call it a prison of liberty.
A prison of liberty, because they believe in freedom and they're being imprisoned for it. So it's no different than whether they're in the Evan prison in Tehran or if they're going to be sitting in Camp Liberty in Baghdad. So it does just break my heart to see that people are having to suffer, that they have their basic human rights denied. Until recently didn't even have running water. I think that is deplorable conditions that they've been forced to be put in. And ultimately, the United Nations are responsible for allowing them to be sent to Camp Liberty. And it's the United Nations' responsibility to make sure that we have them put into asylum as quickly as possible. Well, I can tell you that I've been carrying their cause for quite a few years now, that I recognize that they deserve to be moved to a safe location as quickly as possible. These are freedom fighters. These are people that have stood up on principle. I appreciate everything that they have endured until now, and that even though they may be in their darkest hour, that there is people like myself, many of them within the Canadian Parliament and around the world, who are advocating for them and to see them truly liberated.
I thank you very much for your participation in this interview, and I thank you very much for your very sincere words for free Iran, and I wish you all the luck.
Well, I thank you and the NCRI for everything that you do in bringing the truth, not only to the Iranian community in Iran, but informing us around the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much.